Welcome to a transformative conversation that transcends the boundaries of ordinary love and invites you to explore a love perfected through the divine lens of God. In a world filled with fleeting connections and superficial affections, we are here to delve deep into the essence of love as guided by timeless biblical principles. This journey promises to be nothing short of extraordinary, igniting your senses and soul alike. Picture a tapestry of emotions woven with threads of compassion, grace, and unwavering faith. Imagine the gentle caress of divine love like a warm embrace from the heavens, touching your heart and awakening your spirit. But this isn't just a one time event. We invite you to be a part of the community, a place where these enlightening conversations continue long after the discussion concludes. Here, we foster a supportive and nurturing environment for growth and understanding. And for those who seek to elevate their mindset to a new height, we present the Diamond Club. Here, we sharpen the facets of our thinkings, cultivating resilience and wisdom that can withstand life's challenges. So, are you guys ready to embark on this journey to discover love perfected through the lens of God? If that is so, go ahead and hit the share and hit the like and go ahead and start to participate into this conversation as we get after it. Now, as you guys know, I like to start off with some data, and statistics is my thing. I don't like participating in statistics, but I like reading them, right? So, according to a recent survey, 85% of people believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Now, I just want to pause right there and just kind of get your thoughts on that. Like, why do you think it's just 85%? And I say it like 85% is such a low number, right? But why isn't it like 100%? Why not 99%? I'm just curious. What are your thoughts?
I was gonna say you can go ahead, Lisa.
I'm going to give probably more simplistic answer. I believe it's because we have um, when you think about love, I guess I'm thinking about the spectrum of this 85% and how they perceive love, maybe how they look at love. So all that is not disclosed. But I'm going to say because we live in a world created by the Father, and prayerfully you don't see it, but the people who think about love, some of them may have the wrong conception of what love is. So I think that data may have a little bit of that in it.
I'm in total agreement to what Lisa said. We don't have God all the way into the world. It's a portion, and it's not 100%. So whenever you take God out of something, um, it's not complete. It's not whole. So that's why we're not going to have 100%. And then, like Lisa said, people's perspective or their perception of love is skewed. So if one person hurts them that they thought loved them, then well, they couldn't have loved me. So now their perception towards love has completely changed because I thought this was the person. So you have a lot of that, a lot of unforgiveness. And I know we'll get to it as we continue with our topic today, but that's all I like to share.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with both of you. I think um, when you look at it, and at least I like the fact you said the spectrum of love, right? Because I agree. The spectrum of understanding of what love really is. There is only, love only comes from one place, one source. And if we don't know Him, then we have been confused and we're fooling ourselves to believe that we actually know love. And so what we do is we kind of exchange, and as I've said this before, we kind of exchange love for like. And unfortunately, if a person does not behave in such a way that makes me feel like they like me, then I automatically conclude that means that they don't love me. And so when it comes down to it, we have a distorted perspective of what love really is. So when it comes down to the notion of it being the most powerful force in the universe, you have people who tend to disassociate themselves from love, people who tend to view love as a thing that serves me as opposed to me being the person that is supposed to serve love. And so I believe, and it's just me, I am really surprised based upon me seeing what I've seen. I'm really surprised that it's at 85%, to be honest with you. And I'm often concerned, and when looking at that survey, is it love that they're really talking about, or is it like their perspective of love that they're agreeing to? And I think that kind of creates the conclusion that we end up coming up with when it comes down to love. So the facade that we believe is love and the reality and what love really is. So that's kind of like where I want to kind of inject my thoughts as we go forward. I like what Natasha is saying here. If you don't mind bringing that to the screen, some people think it's an unattainable goal or concept. I agree, because they kind of interlace the concept of love with perfection. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thank you for sharing that as well. Um, Roland says that love is the epitome of power without control. The lack thereof controls people to act on their own and mess stuff up. Yep, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree. And then Michelle says, I believe the total perspective of love has been flawed and devalued by those who do not know or have a relationship with the Father. Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree with that 100%. Like, you cannot, I think it's impossible for me to conclude that um, I have any parts of love if I'm absent from Him. So let's kind of get after this conversation here because I know you guys are ready. And we're going to start off with the challenges and common concerns. So, first things first, I want to ask you, and I said I'm gonna have to start calling on y'all because y'all be jousting for mic time. No, I'm joking. What are the common misconceptions or objections raised against the idea of love as viewed through biblical principles? And how can individuals engage in respectful and persuasive conversations to address these concerns, fostering understanding and unity amidst diversity of thought? So I know that was a mouthful, right? So I'm gonna allow you to digest it as you see fit. And since Lisa, you started first, Miss Onita, we're gonna go with you. And then, of course, Lisa, you can follow up as you see fit.
Of course. It is a mouthful. However, I would like to say one of the misconceptions or objections that I see for me and what I've experienced is um, not wanting to face the fears or the pain from being in a relationship where I thought someone loved me or that I loved. So now I'm looking at the Bible to say, well, am I supposed to let them walk over me? If I forgive them, am I supposed to continue to let them do X, Y, and Z? So now I don't want to talk about it. And I've seen other people where they don't want to discuss it because they become bitter towards the idea of love because of what's happened to them in the past. Um, but I think that if we were to set aside our differences, our past fears, our pains, come to the table, being able to be vulnerable, to show emotion, to get it out there, knowing that if the Father is right there in the middle, we cannot leave the same way that we came to this conversation. And with that, knowing that this conversation is going to evoke change and it's going to be a good change, not just for me, but for the participants that are at the table. So if we all thought the same way as, you know what, let's set aside our differences, let's set aside our personal agendas so we can get after what love truly is, what it's supposed to be in our community, in our families, and in our homes, then we'd be able to move forward.
So you know me, I took a lot of notes on this because I had to. But I think, of course, active listening and we have to plant seeds because God is the one who's going to give the increase, but we have to also take them back, lead them back to the truth because a lot of people have their own, like we have said on this platform, they have their own perspective. And when we continually take them back to the truth, then we can help them understand and give them what the word says if they're willing to have the discussion with us. And we have to be able to identify that there's some commonality between us and then address or lead them to, what the word of God says. If we're not believers and we can't come together and have a conversation, then sometimes all we can do is plant a seed and then allow God to give the increase.
I like it. I like it all. I want to start with for me, right? I would say one of the common misconceptions, um, is that, and I addressed it earlier, that we can love without God. I want to start there. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have a lot of times, that we have the ability to love without God. Now, um, that's one that is a big one, that is a huge one. But then the other side of it, when it comes down to some common misconceptions that I've seen, and I just admit I probably was guilty of it as well, is that I have a complete understanding of what love is. So, in the spectrum of that, you have those people who don't believe in God at all, but still claim that they love. But then you have those who do believe in God and say, okay, I understand love. And because you don't understand love, that's your fault, not mine. Well, within the scope of all of it, I think number one, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to say it again because I believe this to be wholeheartedly. And if you don't believe it, that's okay, right? Just consider it. You don't have the, I don't think you have the ability to love a person absent of God. And that's number one. I don't think you have the ability to love anything. Now, caring is not the same thing. So to care for a person and to love a person, I think those are two different things. But you cannot love someone else outside of God. I just don't believe it's possible. On the flip side of it, it is virtually impossible for you to believe that you have the total understanding of what love is. I think when you consider that, those are two of the biggest misconceptions. So, what we do in error is that we blame another person, or we will point the finger at another person, or we will judge another person because their expression of the thing that they do not understand completely is not like mine. And because you don't express love the way that I express love, you're flawed, you're in error, and you still got some growing that you need to do. So I think in the grand scheme of things, what we need to do is broaden our mindset, right? I believe wholeheartedly that nobody is ever completely wrong or completely right, period. At the end of the day, we need to keep an open perspective so that we can grow in our awareness. Like, you have to understand, and I said this on the message board this morning, God gave us a portion of Him. He did not inject all of Him into one person today, period, ever. So when we walk around behaving and acting as though I have the fullness of God in me right now, I'm in error. That's why it's important for us to come together and have open and honest conversation. That's the value of having these conversations, so that when two or three like come together in His name, He is in the midst. Well, that's why it's written that way. I cannot say that, oh, well, I'm by myself. I don't need nobody else. And this is what's going to happen for me. Okay, good luck. Um, and then I will also go with the other side, like one of the objections in relation to it. Y'all ain't going to like it. I'm just saying. One of the objections, and I want to look at it again, right? So, what what are the common misconceptions or objections raised against the idea of love? Well, the objection is that I can have a healthy relationship that is void of it. So again, that takes me back to what I said previously. Um, if I am believing and confusing myself to believe that I can have a healthy relationship that does not include love, then we're not necessarily giving value to the one who created us, because the one who created us, the Bible says that He is. And if we were made in His image and after His likeness, then we have to come to the conclusion that we were created to not only love, but to be loved, right? So first coming from Him, next coming, through us. And if we look at it from that perspective, now we can get to the point to where we can broaden our horizons, broaden our thought processes, broaden our ways of being under the understanding of humility. Again, stressing the humility. And you're probably going to hear me talk about that about 4 or 5 more times a day. Under the umbrella of humility, I have the ability to grow in my awareness and understanding as it relates to God the Father Himself and His prized creations, mankind. Okay, just one.
Yeah.
And coach, if I can add to it, when you were saying, that we have got to come together, each of us have a part in the body. So we need the hand to function. We need, we need the feet to function. And so when we come together and perfectly knit ourselves, with the intent of us growing together, that is helpful, and it's a big part of love, because a lot of times we find that we want to try to navigate in areas that are not divinely for us, and it's identified by the way we have our interactions with people. So I'm just saying that we have got to be more mindful of what our purpose and our intent is for each other in the body, so that we can work together more perfectly.
I like it. I really do like that. And that lends to and again, we talk about this all the time, that lends to the value of community, right? Community, for the most part, in essence, gets to the point to where there are separate separate skills, gifts, values that are found in each one. Lisa's isn't the same as mine's, and Onita's isn't the same as Lisa's, and Onita's isn't the same as mine's, and mine's isn't the same as hers. So I think over in the grand scheme of things, what we tend to do is we exist in a space of competition. Still, even under the umbrella of love, we feel that we need to compete, and that's kind of like what we do. So instead of making room for the other person, and let's just be completely transparent, if we select our surroundings the right way, I don't need to make room. You're right, your gift makes room. So that's the thing. But we compete with one another, and unfortunately, because of that banter, that competition that exists, what we do is we feel a certain type of way because right now Lisa's gift might be overshadowing mine's, or Anita's gift might be overshadowing mine. No, why not applaud Lisa in her gift, as opposed to feeling a particular type of way and then try to do the little wiggle and shimmy trying to make space for me? No. If you humble yourself and acknowledge somebody else, then I think what you'll find is that in reverse, you will be acknowledged at a later point in time. And if y'all know how I am about seed time and harvest. Not three terms, not three terms too. Seed time and harvest, not seed time and harvest. But that's a whole nother conversation. Um, Anita, you had anything else before we moved on and grabbed the people in the chat? No, you
No,
good? You
sir.
sure? You sure? All right, just want to make
All
sure.
I'm good.
All right, let me see. It looks like Natasha says one of the challenges is loving like God love. Absolutely, absolutely. That is one of the biggest challenges, and kind of gets after the point where we mentioned that nobody's perfect. Well, yeah, we got that. That's the notion of nobody's perfect is for everybody. So it's kind of like a moot point to say nobody's perfect. Yeah, I got it. We appreciate that, but at the end of the day, that applies to who? Everybody, right? So again, after her point, I really like it because that is a challenge, but in conjunction with it doesn't mean that we're not supposed to continue to strive in that direction. So I really love this statement because I think everybody has experienced it. And if you haven't experienced it, the only reason you haven't experienced it yet because you're not honest enough with yourself. Until you get honest enough with yourself to admit this piece right here, then everybody is embodying the exact same challenge and pursuing in his direction. So thank you for that. Let's see who's next. Nope, nobody. That we must love everyone. Um, yeah, I in that scripture, right? I think when we look at it being made in his image after his likeness and looking how he actually does it, well, the Bible says that he doesn't love everybody. So that is a very hard pill to swallow in a world that is raising you to believe that fairness and inclusion is a thing, right? So we believe in, oh, it's not fair. Oh, sure, it's not fair, but it's not. Nothing is fair in the kingdom. The kingdom has a dominion, a domain, and in that domain, the king's rule is supreme. That's just what it is. So whatever rules the king make, that's what happens in the domain. It's that simple. The common misconception is love without relationship with the Most High. Love isn't what I can do for you, or vice versa. Yeah, absolutely. 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 Okay, one more and we're out the door. I perceive that love is a concept that cannot be explained because everyone sees it in a different perspective. True, I agree. In conjunction with that, I think for us to get a more holistic perspective, it requires us to come together to have conversation about what love looks like through my lens. because and that goes back to the portion of that none of us have the wholeness of God in us, but we have access to Him through the Son, and coming together is recognizing the trueness and the realness of who the Father really is, as opposed to the singleness of who I really am. So thank you for that, and I agree 100%. Okay, next question under challenges and common concerns. And again, keep putting your comments in the chats, because again, like I said, we value your comments and we want to make sure that we acknowledge them as well. Okay, next question. As individuals strive to embody the ideals of biblical love, what potential obstacles, and we talked about that the other day, what potential obstacles and dilemmas might they encounter, and how can they navigate these challenges while staying true to their convictions, much like figures who face similar tests of faith and love?
Now you know that's on you, coach. That's why you pause.
Mm-mm. I
Oh
got
yeah.
two. I got two parties right here. No, sir. We ain't doing that today.
Well, I'm already speaking, so I'll just go ahead and answer. Um, I would say some obstacles that we face is judgment, being outcasted by people if we decide to love the way that the Lord says we should love. Um, Isolation. You may feel lonely because everybody's looking at you like, don't you know they did X, Y, and Z to you? They're expecting you to hold these offenses and then turn your back against people. But we are to forgive as we are forgiven. And then I also wanted to read 1 John 4:17 through 19. It says, love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as He is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. We love Him because He first loved us. So if we find ourselves feeling fearful of loving the way God loves, says that we should love, just go back to the Word. So that's your comfort. So in everything, knowing that God's love overpowers all of the stuff will provide comfort in every situation.
So I was over here reading my notes, and some of the things that I was writing down doing my notes was temptation and moral dilemmas, perseverance in the face of adversity. So the biblical figures often endure hardship and trials. Similarly, individuals striving to live out their convictions may face adversity, including persecution, rejection, or personal struggles. Relying on God's strength and finding support in the community can help navigate these difficult times. So we have to make sure that we have this community that we have, and lead into that support of that community that we have, and stay true to our convictions, because that's what it's going to take for us. We can't waver. We have to stand fast in what we believe. And sometimes that's going to be difficult, because it's going to mean that we have to separate ourselves from the people that, maybe not separate ourselves, but look at them from a distance, from the people that we are in relationship with. And that includes our family. So we have to stand fast in what we believe, and we have to walk this journey, because sometimes that path is going to be a narrow path for us.
You know what? I'm uh I'm liking both of those answers, to be honest with you. I'm loving them, to be honest with you. Um I definitely agree with, sometimes, and I'm gonna go back to how you said it. Sometimes we got to separate ourselves from some people. I agree with that philosophy, and it's not so much as me intentionally separating myself from you. It's that your behavior will separate you from me. um, because again, my boundaries, my yard, my work. So at the end of the day, my boundaries are established and they don't change. So going back to the question within itself, it says, what potential obstacles or dilemmas might we encounter? One of the biggest obstacles I believe that we encounter is number one, we don't have clearly defined boundaries. That's for starters, right? And for us, the word becomes our boundaries, right? And we try to make amends for certain people, to get beyond our boundaries. So because, like, to the point Lisa made, because you're a family member, I move my boundary for you. No, I don't think that that's a good idea whatsoever. And it's not, and it has nothing to do with me not loving you. It's just that your behavior won't allow me to love you to such a degree that you can recognize it, because you have your own perspective on what I should be doing in your life. So again, going back to my point, my boundary, my yard, my work, right? I don't put it off on you. I don't make it your responsibility. I can't ask you to do this. I don't get to give you instructions on how to love me. I think that was the biggest lie ever told on the planet. I don't get to write a book and say, this is what the expression of it looks like. And then at the end of the day, you tell everybody, say, hey, this is what my love language is. And then you do it this way. Wrong. It is not it. Right. So again, going back to it, the obstacle, right, can be the person themselves, because they don't have a good understanding of love, or because their perspective of love is of the world, has nothing to do with what the scriptures say, right? Then what ends up happening is that they get to make it up en route, and it becomes a moving target because it's hinged on something that's unstable, their emotions, right? It did not say that anywhere in the Bible. It never said anything in any place that anyone has ever shown me or I've ever found where the Bible depicts that love and how I feel about it is intertwined. And so that was one of the hardest pills for us to swallow growing up, because again, we were made, right? He made us. That means he didn't make an error when he made us. But, I got these emotions and you telling me I can't use them to, for the lack of better terms, get my way. Well, no, that's called manipulation. Right. So again, that's the obstacle. The obstacle is humbling yourself and continuing to do the work on yourself for the sake of having a relationship with God. I will also add, um, another obstacle is, in the midst of understanding love, we seek it from another person when it's already available to us. So because we seek it from another person, that becomes what we tend to call validations. So I'm looking for you to validate me, through the lens of what I believe love to be. So do you like my shirt? Do you like my haircut? Do you like my beard? Do you like? So when we get to asking people questions like that, we're only trying to get them to validate who we are, right? And so again, the obstacle is, letting go of what we thought we knew in the beginning so that we can learn what he is trying to teach us in real time through his word and through the saints. Um, and I think that becomes one of the hugest, the biggest challenge. Now, the dilemma is going back and forth, right? Men, and I'm just going to talk about the one that we see all the time, men versus women, right? Men versus women. The dilemma for us is listening to a person articulate the scriptures from an authentic perspective, as opposed to being laced by their own understanding of what they want. So a lot of times what you hear is that we'll talk about the scriptures, but we'll talk about the scriptures, and under the bed of the conversation is what I want. So I will use the scriptures and drive a perspective of what I want you to believe, and I will use the scriptures for it to be the case, right? And you guys, I mean, everybody's heard it. Supposed to be the man of the house. You know what I'm saying? That is using the scripture to drive the narrative of what I want underneath the scriptures and trying to disguise it. We got to be careful of that, because that's not the only place that happens. So we have to be consciously aware. We have to, number one, read and study it for ourselves, and we need to be able to decipher it right when it actually happens. We need to be able to look and listen in real time and hear the narrative that undergirds that particular scripture when that person is teaching it or talking about it or whatever that looks like. That's why I say what I say. We have to do the work ourselves. It is my responsibility to do the work. And if I do not, I will be led astray by anybody who just come quoting. So that becomes a huge dilemma as well. Um, Let me see. So Michelle, her comment is I believe one obstacle is being able to love someone in spite of their behavior and how they treat others. I believe addressing the behavior and having conversations will bring a person to awareness. I agree. Um, but in conjunction, well, not but in conjunction with that, I believe the it's so the dilemma is internal, right? That person's behavior is objective. I can see it, it's there. The dilemma that I know some people encounter with it is being able to address it. Like some people have this thing called people pleasing to where they don't want to object to address the dilemma in real time. So that becomes a problem. So we got to overcome that. Then when I address it in real time, the person's being able to hear what it is that I'm saying and not justify their behavior. But dilemma number two. And then dilemma number three is getting to the point of having a conversation and coming to the point of understanding. Too many times, what you hear people tell you to do is that, oh, well, if you feel uncomfortable, just leave the conversation and pick it up later. That's a trauma. That is a trauma if you can't stay in the midst of a difficult conversation and have the conversation to such a degree that you get to the point of understanding. You are creating a coping mechanism for a trauma that you actually have, and unfortunately it will never get fixed because there's somebody someplace telling you that that's the right thing to do. It is not. I'm sorry. Now, if it gets to the point to where it becomes heated, you know, frying pans start flying and stuff like that, that's a whole nother conversation. You shouldn't even be in that relationship. I'm sorry. I'm just keeping it real. So good point, Michelle, and thank you for bringing that to the table. Let me see. Bring up Poe Man Dr. Phil's statement there. I'm agreeing with this. Personal judgments, reading scripture through a flawed lens, not having a dependency on His direction through His words. Yep, I agree. Again, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying. We should always remember that our neighbor is anyone that is trying to walk as He walked. Absolutely, absolutely, I agree 100%. We may become ostracized within the groups and networks that we are part of. I believe one of the ways to counter this is to really explain what grace is and how I have benefited from God's grace. Absolutely. Absolutely. His grace is sufficient enough for thee. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay. Good job so far. I love it. I'm enjoying it. Again, don't forget to like, share. We like likes, so go ahead and hit the like button wherever you are, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on the venue formerly known as Twitter. Go ahead and hit the like, and also don't forget to go to the community, become a part of the community, because that's where we continue these conversations. Okay, next category is biblical foundations of love. That said, the question up under there is how does the Bible differentiate between forms of love, such as agape, storge, philia, and eros? And what insights can we gain from these distinctions as we seek to embody divine love in our lives?
You're just gonna sit back and be quiet. Okay.
And drink my tea.
um, so we're talking about the different concepts, I'll say, that the world has adopted pertaining to love, right?
So, okay, true. However, what I would say is that the key point in this question is how does the Bible differentiate between the
Okay.
forms of love?
Well, I'm going to read my definition of agape. Okay. So agape love encompasses all love. Um, divine love, sacrificial love, familial love, friendship, romantic love. And I was looking at John 3:16 as one of the scriptures I looked at, and then First Corinthians 13. Of course, we know what that chapter is. And I looked at philia. Um, don't if I pronounce this wrong, don't don't hold it against me. Um, Storge and is it Eros?
Eros.
Eros. But as I looked through all of them, agape love still encompassed the two that are mentioned biblically. So the Eros That's just made up. That's what a concept that man created to justify how they feel about. It's a Greek word coming from art, and I don't want to go into all that. But when I was studying and reading this question, it just became so evident that agape love covered everything. So I think that is, for biblical understanding, and for us not to be confused by how the world adds their perception of what love is. We have to make sure that we get our understanding from a biblical understanding, because if not, there's another aspect for us to be deceived and confused when it comes to love.
I like what you said. You said Eros is made up. So I actually read in my daily, the daily bread. This is actually November 10th. So I think this was after we had already decided what the topic was going to be. So when I read it, I was like, oh, I got to share this because this is part of, um, or it's a good, definition or what they said. So it's talking about agape love, but agape love is the highest form of love. Well, this is what we should have towards everyone. Philia is brotherly love, like what we have towards our neighbors, what we have towards each other in this group. But this is the biblical word agape, God's love, is an unconditional commitment to love that's rooted in an unchanging decision. It always gives and doesn't change whether the love is returned or not. It is a decision of your heart to seek the other person's highest good, no matter how they may respond. I was like, oh, let me highlight that because that's going to be a part of my response. But absolutely, agape is the highest form. There is no wavering, there is no changing of that. And when we get to that, and I think it's daily, it's not something that we just wake up one day and say, okay, I have agape. It's something that we are continuously working on day in, day out, knowing that this is the type of love that God has for us. And we should also have for each other, no matter what is happening. Like one of the viewers said, if a person is doing something that you don't like, but you still love them in spite of, that's agape. You're going to have this form of love regardless. But I've never heard of storge, actually. I've heard of philia. I've heard of eros. So I would like to hear what Coach is going to say and break down each one because, again, I'm learning just like everybody else is in every session that we have. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Um, it's probably not going to sound different, to be honest with you. I think there has been a lot of injection, right? Some injection of information that we have confused and taught, thinking that we're knowledgeable about a thing. And in essence, it becomes just a cornucopia of information to, for me to stand behind the podium and I get to stand a particular type of way and speak a particular type of way because, I hear directly from the Father Himself. And the Lord told me to tell you, and, and if you don't, it's too much, too much. Listen, the Bible talks about two, agape and brotherly. That's it. Those are two that the Bible talks about. Um, Philia and Storge, and it's really like two more. I think it's like a total of I think it's a total of eight.
9.
9. Okay. Um, but Philia, I'm sorry, Storge is supposedly the love that is like familial love, right? So the love that you would have for your child, the love that you would have for your sibling, so forth and so on. So that's supposed to be Storge, and Eros obviously is more erotic, and so then you'll have people who try to tie those to what you read in the Songs of Solomon, Eros, and then Storge. They'll talk about different aspects. You're talking about the boy child that got boy child and the maid servant that got exiled away from Abraham and his wife because they got the tripping, and so Sarah said they got to go, right? So you'll hear different things talking about those things, and it can be, and they are tying it to these Greek terminologies. The Bible speaks of two: agape and philia, or ero. I'm sorry, agape and brotherly love, right? Specifically. And when we look at agape love is the love that God has for man. And ideally, when man becomes aware of that, it becomes the reciprocity between man and God. So man turns around and reverberate the exact same love, not to the same capacity, to the Father, because it is laced under the concept of appreciation. There is nothing that we stop going to the Father in request. Lord, if you just get me out this situation, I promise you I ain't gonna. No, you still stuck in the world, boo. He know you're lying. That's why he ain't gonna get you out. Just keeping it real. So it becomes the thing to where you just have a deep sense of appreciation for who he is first, and everything that he has done for you, unbeknownst by you. Even in the midst of you in doing some of the foolish stuff that you was doing, he was still there for you, making sure that he covered you and protected you and all of that great stuff. And then once you become aware of that, you start to give it back to him as best you possibly can, as best you understand it. So you don't exclude him from anything. And then because of that understanding, you look at your brothers and your sisters and you try to project that same love to them because it's coming from him to you, through you to them. That's really what those two perspectives that are articulated in the Bible is all about. Because ideally, when we really dig deep into it, we start rejecting those other type love, which is all about vain service of my flesh. That's all it is. Even I don't care how much you look at it, I don't care how you try to twist it and flip it and Bell Biv DeVoe it, it doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know Bell Biv DeVoe's a prophet. Stop playing. So that's really what it is. You cannot take something that has a true, authentic nature and turn it around and try to have it serve you and then hold another person hostage to the thing and make it serve you. No, it's not how it works. And I like what Lisa said, that agape encompasses every version of love that you can consider according to his will. I say it again, according to his will. So while we're out here chasing, and I'm sorry, again, I told you y'all wasn't gonna like me, but while we're out here chasing companionship, you're supposed to already have companionship. So that's evidence in your life that you're not spending enough time with him. But I'm out here, I just want to get married. Okay. But you're supposed to be already married. So evidence in your life that you're not spending enough time with him. Well, I just want somebody to help me pay these bills. It's evidence in your life that you're not accepting the fact that God will provide all of your needs according to his riches and glory. And like I said before, and I'm going to say it again, no one has ever been able to articulate to me the dollar amount or what his riches and glory look like. So if he's providing all of your needs according to his riches and glory, I am almost 99.9975% sure that it's going to exceed your needs. So that's the issue. So we got to really search ourselves and ask ourselves some very difficult questions. And when we ask ourselves some very difficult questions, it all points to one thing: I need to fix this person. Again, my boundary, my yard, my work.
Coach, do you mind me reading the two definitions?
Not at all.
Yeah, I'm going to read agape, and then I want to read eros as well, because I want us to see something in this definition that they have available for us on Google and Wikipedia. Okay, so agape is often referred to as unconditional love or selfless love. It is the highest form of love described in the Bible, and it is exemplified by God's love for humanity. Agape love is characterized as sacrificial action, seeking the well-being and welfare of others without expecting anything in return. It is a love that is not based on um, worthlessness of the recipient, but is freely given. This form of love is emphasized throughout the New Testament, particularly in passages like I mentioned, John 3:16 and 1 Corinthians 13. So now the other definition. Eros refers to a romantic or passionate love. It is the love associated with desires and attractions, particularly in context of romantic relationships. While the term eros itself is not explicitly used in the Bible, the concept of romantic love and the pursuit of marital intimacy are acknowledged and celebrated within the biblical framework, such as the Songs of Solomon. Because you mentioned that. So even though, and we as believers, we use this concept and define it and say that's what we want. So we have to be very careful what we're reading and make sure that we filter it through the word of God, because if we do not, we allow ourselves to be deceived.
Absolutely. Listen, I used to talk about it.
Mm.
I remember years ago, I used to talk about it, right? But now my mentality, fold up and throw it in the trash. If the Bible ain't mentioned, I don't want to talk about it. In fact, I'll listen to you talk about it. I even consider what it is that you're saying. But I will be honest with you, I'm considering it under the notion of what the Bible is saying. That's what I'm considering, not considering the entirety of everything that you are trying to project. I ain't got time for that. I'm considering what the word says. So I think that becomes something that we need to digest. So yeah, great point. Anita, do you have anything else you want to add to that before we kind of get after some of these thoughts in the chats?
No, I mean, we all know agape is the highest, and that's what we need to focus on.
Focus is the key word. I love it. Okay, listen, at least you got a fan club going on. I just want to put that out there. So bring up the first statement or question, please. Yeah. Ask yourself, do we love because of emotions or wants? So when you are rejected, how do you sacrifice? How do the sacrifices we make to love? Um, I want to ask yourself, do we love because of emotions or wants? So when we are rejected, how do the sacrifices we make to love? Um, Maybe I'm reading it. At least you're saying something. I think you're muted.
No, I was reading the question along with you, and I
Okay.
think it was asking, from our perspective of love, are we loving because we have this emotional connection with the
Right.
individual, or because we want something from that individual? Is what I'm perceiving. I'm not sure if that's exactly what she's saying. In either way, um, those are not the right reasons, because we don't own love. God gives it to us. It's in us and it's shared through us to connect with other people who have love in them. So that's the only thing I wanted to add to that. And I hope that I didn't misinterpret what she was asking.
No, you're absolutely spot on. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't misinterpreting the second part of it. I got the first part, and I was pretty much going to say the same thing that you said as well. But the second part is kind of like what threw me for a loop. So Miss McCoy, if you don't mind, if you can kind of resend that, I will gladly read that over and over again, because I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying, especially the part that I gather, but I'm just a little confused on the second part. Agape love is the unconditional love which we are called to show, to based upon the scripture calling us to love thy neighbor as thyself. Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to, I want to set the conditions, because, and I'm not saying, Natasha, anything you're saying is wrong. I want to set the conditions first. I think we need to recognize agape as a noun. Right. I think we need to keep it there first. We need to hold it there long enough for us to digest it, because a lot of times what I've observed, I've heard people do, they want to automatically go into the expression of, right? But you can only express a thing at the level of your understanding. If we can hold it in the space of a noun being a thing first and just keep it there, then we can get to the point to where we actually get to a point of better understanding, right? It's like saying, the contents of this cup is a thing, right? And I'm embracing the warmth of it on a cold day, and it is so good, and I'm savoring it. That's what we wanted. That's the thing I'm trying to to relay at this point. We need to savor the flavor of what agape really is, so that we, as Lisa take a sip from her cup, by the way, savor the flavor of what agape really is, right? so that we can get to the point of fully understanding what his love means to us. Then we can get to the point of sharing. Because a lot of times, what and again, I want to keep saying this, is that we get a thought that, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do it. No, it's too fast, too soon, right? It's like driving a car. You just got your driver's license. I ain't ready to put you on 20 yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, not driver's license. You just got your learner's permit. You ain't ready to get on 20 yet by yourself and doing rush hour traffic. So we got to get to the point of savoring it first, which means we can't action it initially. We have to savor it and embody it. Once you embody it, then you can get to the point of sharing it. And I think what we do is we attempt to share it too soon. And what we're sharing in our mind, we're saying agape, but we're really sharing the world's understanding and expression of love. And I think that is the difference and the problem that we run into. So great point, Natasha. And again, I'm not saying anything against what you're saying. I just wanted to add context to it so that we can love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, until we embody it, we'll never love another person as ourselves. We'll love a person as we see them. Um, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Because you're so valued. I just wanted to make sure I say that. Okay, Michelle got another. Michelle over there spitting hot fire like Dylan. This also goes along with the five love languages. Man, come on. I don't even want to read no more.
Go ahead, finish. Go ahead, finish
This
reading
also,
it.
y'all know me, man. This also goes along with the five love languages. Negative, that's made up as well. It's only God's love and his love. See, I told you she was spitting hot fire like Dylan. Absolutely. There's only one love language, God's language. That's it. There is no, yeah, I want quality time. Wait, go get a dough. I'm just saying, do better. You stop trying to turn it into something that pleases you. It ain't about pleasing you. Okay, I'm sorry. And I get emotional about that. Agape charity is when you place someone else first in all things. After you sit with it, understand it, embody it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Savor the flavor. Absolutely. I'm gonna have to go over there and see what that is. Okay, let's keep pressing. Let's keep pressing.
Coach, can I ask you another?
Yeah.
Can
Sure.
you address this these five love languages again? Help us teach us
Mm.
so that we won't be in error. Because I see it used so much. This is my love language. This is my love language. And I need you to do what I want you to do because this is my love language.
I think you just did. You just addressed all five of them.
Okay, can you?
That's it. Okay. So I'm trying to remember all of them. You got quality time, physical touch, acts of service. I think it's what's the other one? I don't know. Still hogwash. Anyway, so in the beginning, when it first came out, you would hear people who articulate what their love language is, and they would tell you up front that my love language is quality time. Therefore, I need for you to spend quality time with me, and that's how I believe you actually love me. And they'll go a step further because really what they're trying to say is quantity time, not quality time. And so if I get more of your time, that means that if I'm being completely honest, you ain't out there doing nothing you ain't got no business doing. That's really what they were trying to say. Or physical touch. I just need you to put your hands on me. Um, you know, yes, I started to be petty and asked you to be taking some today. But it's stuff like that. Now, and don't get me wrong, all of these things involve the human experience. So I'm not downplaying that. I'm just downplaying using it as a quote unquote love language. It's a manipulation language. And then, I'm gonna go back because I remember a couple of months ago. Yeah, gifts of service, time, affirmation, and touch. Yeah, you need me to stroke your ego. That's what affirmation is. So I remember I said I had to take a step back because I thought I was being biased, and I wanted to make sure I'm not being biased, and I wanted to look at it from a different perspective. Therefore, if I am saying that gifts, hypothetically speaking, is my interpretation of love language. So I believe that you need to do, well, instead of doing that, what I need to do is look at the other four and say, you know what, if I pride myself in gift giving, then I need to look at touch. I need to look at quality time. I need to look at acts of service. And how can I get better at all of those? I agree that those things incorporate growth. I agree that those things incorporate um, development. I agree to that. Um, I'm just not agreeing to anything else. I'm sorry. It has still has nothing to do with love. It's something that was made up. It's something that somebody purported so that they can actually sell a book, and we bought into it, and we took that knowledge, and then we all said, "Hey, this is what I need you to do for me," and never got to the point of saying, "Hey, you know what? These are the things that I need to do better, just to get better at, just to be a good, decent person." There's nothing wrong with being a decent person, but there's something wrong with taking these things and manipulating another person and say, if we're going to spend time together, if you're going to be in my space, then you need to do these things because that's what I believe. If you want me to give you gifts and you tell me to give you gifts, you just guarantee I would never give you anything. You just literally writ that in stone, and I will see to it that I will bring it to pass. Even if I want to buy you something, I'll be like, nope, not going to do it. I'm stubborn. I'm sorry.
The
Just keep it real.
rebellion. Oh
Nope,
my
that's not
goodness.
rebellion. That's not rebellion. Nope, because that person ain't my God, so it can't be rebellion. Just saying,
You're right. You are right.
just keeping it
Yeah,
real.
like so. And you say you ain't gonna get it. Don't be mad when I say I asked or I told you what I wanted. You just said you ain't gonna get it.
I think Coach is saying that if you're using that as a way to manipulate him to do something versus allowing the person to do it for you, then you can guarantee that. Well, with Coach, because he said he's stubborn. It's not.
I am. I
It's,
am. I would draw a line in the sand and dip
So
my head like a
don't
bull.
use it. Basically, he said don't use it for manipulative purposes.
yes.
No,
Well,
no. When you start manipulating a person, no.
I seen the T-shirt that says my love language is personal touch. You know, I seen the T-shirt that says my love language on the front and personal touch on the back. And guess who was wearing it?
Mm-mm,
I ain't gonna say male or female, but I'm
mm-mm, mm-mm.
but
I
I'm saying
won't.
there are other. That's how it is used to manipulate you to do what the individual wants you to do. When the work has to be done in us, as Coach said earlier, we have got to do the work so that we can be at least touch all of those quote unquote languages, so that we can be more versed and be in a more healthy relationship with ourselves
Right,
first.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
And let me clear up the airway. Right, that there is nothing wrong with personal preference, but let's just call it personal preference, right? If you want, like, if you're a woman and you want your man to be 6'4" and about 215, there's nothing wrong with saying that's my personal preference. But don't pin it on love and try to use love as your excuse to say that that's what I want. Just be bold enough and adult enough to say this is what I want, so that other person gets a vote. Like okay, let me say it in a different way so that it's widely accepted. If you married and you trying to have a side chick, then tell the side chick that you married so that they can get a vote. That's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not, and by saying that, I'm not saying that I support that. But it's like sometimes I got to say it just like that for certain people to understand what it is I'm saying. Give the other person the option and what they choose to do with their life. That's all I'm saying. Now, if you're married and you need a side chick, you need to go sit down someplace. I'm just being honest.
So are you saying, Coach, don't take my option from me? Be honest and be true.
Right.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
You're trying to say, oh, it's love, it's love. I know she did have a classic face just now. No, exactly. Don't pin it on love. It has nothing to do with love. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that, and I agree. And absolutely correct. God is really who we need. Anybody that we choose to be with, that's a choice. That's the thing. There was nothing in the Bible that said that you're guaranteed to be married. That's it. And I hear some people say they're called to be married. Anyway, you are to Christ. So yes, that's it. So I think we're gonna beat that horse. We're gonna beat that horse dead enough. so, so moving on. Y'all trying to get me to be petty today. I ain't gonna do it no more. Um, so the next question is: can you share a specific biblical story or figures that exemplify divine? Okay, I'm gonna take the option away from you guys because y'all gonna say Christ. You can't say Christ. I know both of y'all about to say Christ. I know it. Taking him away. Sorry. You can't bring Jordan into a basketball game and then ask me to play. I don't want to play no more.
Why not?
Because you can't take the greatest of all time and use that. Let's use another one. I
Well,
need y'all.
because I know you, and I knew you would say we can't use that. I already had another one. So,
Oh man. All right, so back to the question. Can you share specific biblical stories or figures that exemplify divine love and offer practical guidance on how to express love in our daily interactions with each other, drawing from their examples?
You want me to go? Um, I'm one of the biblical characters that I referenced was Sarah. I think was it Sarah? Hold on, give me a second. Um, because I knew you wasn't gonna let us just use Christ either.
How do y'all know that? I feel attacked right now. Just so
because we
yeah,
know you.
I hear that, right? They're ganging up on me.
um, hold on, give me a second. Give me a second. Because I got a lot of notes over here. Oh, you if you want to, Anita, you can go. I'm trying to find this question.
Okay, so because I already knew that we couldn't bring Jordan into the game,
Mhm.
I use Ruth because I'm a woman, so I'm gonna look for the woman. The book of Ruth, she lost her husband, right? But she still stuck with her mother-in-law. She would not leave her, even though she told her, "Go, I ain't got nothing for you. I got no more sons for you." And she was like, "No, I'm not gonna leave your side." So even as they progress, she followed her back to her homeland. She left everything she knew to follow her mother-in-law. She didn't have to at that point, but she still did because she loved her. She listened to her instruction as in how to go out and to, you know, get from the field or to sit before another man. Like she trained Ruth and she listened. Ruth loved her that much where she was like, "You know what? I'm not going to leave you even though your son, my husband, is gone." And she made sure that her mother-in-law was still provided for. To me, that was the ultimate because how many of us can say after our spouse left or passed, God forbid, that we would still care for our, I don't like saying in-laws, but in love the same way. We probably wouldn't. It would be like, you know what? We didn't have any kids together. It's a clean break for some people. And then others, not so much, where they're like, you get the Christmas card, you get the birthday wishes, you get, the holidays, but not displaying what Ruth displayed. So to me, it was, you know what? She loved that lady regardless. It wasn't that she could get something from her, it was the fact that she loved her in spite of the situation, in spite of what they both were going through. She was still willing to stick with her, stick it out, to continue to learn and grow as a young woman. And then she made sure that her mother-in-law was still provided for, even though she wasn't even her mother-in-law anymore.
I just want to ask a question. You said you didn't like the term in-law. So you said in love. So when they're no longer the in-law or they're outlaw, I'm joking. I'm being petty. Go
You
ahead.
just you on the road today.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
Help yourself.
Well, Ruth was one of mine as well, and Naomi. But the centurion soldier, I guess I can use him as an example, because he loved and um, he understood, you know, because of the love he had for understanding Jesus' position and his authority, and he trusted him. I would say that he would be one of the persons that I would use as an example for biblical reference, because his faith, because he showed, the word of God says it's impossible to please God without faith. So he showed um, exceptional faith in the relationship that he um, in the trust that he had in Christ. So I would use him as a biblical reference.
I like it. I like both of them. I'm gonna use a reference, and my reference and the reason why I'm going to use my reference is because there's extensive um, documentation on him, so we understand that he was not perfect, right? Get out my notes. Understand that he was not perfect. Well, no, that's not the same spot. And that's King Solomon. When he was coming into his own, the Lord appeared to him and asked, "What shall I give thee?" Um, so it's like, here, take this blank check, write in whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like he took the blank check and said, turned around and gave it to the people, because in being given the opportunity to ask the Lord, um, what shall I give thee? He actually asked for him wisdom so that he can actually exercise proper judgment over these people. Um, and so I think, going back to Roland's statement earlier about the concept of agape, being able to give unconditionally, to esteem others higher than yourself, so forth and so on. When given the opportunity to ask the Lord of glory, um, when the Lord of glory asked him, "What should I give thee?" His response was, um, you know, help me, give me the wisdom, give me the understanding, give me the knowledge to be able to, serve these people. That's how I view that term. Serve these people according to your will. And that's the cliff notes according to um so I think for me, that's the one I'm gonna choose, because we all understand that he had his struggles as time progressed, right? And so I want to identify him because everybody is going to deal with the ebbs and flow of life. You're going to be at a place where you feel like you are blessed beyond measure, and you're going to be walking around singing the song. I can't remember, dude. Every time I turn around, blessings, blessings, blessings. Right? You're going to be singing that song and dancing and posting on the book, the Facebook, and the Instagram and the Twitter. I'm sorry, the venue formerly known as Twitter. You're going to be posting everywhere. I'm blessed. I'm highly favored of the Lord. I'm all this. You're human. That's what you are. That's it. Right? You are a child of the Most High, recognizing Him first, right? Not His blessings, recognizing Him first. And I think when we get down to it, when we understand, um, that when we capture it wholeheartedly, when we embody the love instead of looking to project it first, then our goal is to serve Him well. And we serve Him well by serving His people well. Um, yes, that's what I was referring to when I said that he had his troubles going forward, which is how the book of Ecclesiastes came into play. So you're absolutely correct. Everybody everybody has had, whether they are willing to admit it or not, everybody has had has had a Solomon moment in their life. Everybody has experienced being here, and then being brought back to here. And then what we have to do is recognize that existed, because some probably up here you thought a little bit too much about yourself, right? You glorified you and forgot that it was the person who placed you there that you were supposed to glorify. And then, oh my God, yeah, that was like the big one. The what was it? I call him the heavy D of gospel. Fred Hammond. Everybody was blessed in the city. Yeah, everybody was at one point in time. Um, so yeah, so you've been here, and then you end up going here. But the question has to become: did you learn the lesson that was supposed to be learned here, right? And that's the key. So that's why I chose him, because everybody knows who King Solomon is. They only want to talk about one aspect of him, though. You got to recognize that he went from here down to here and then came back to here. Um, and so that's the key. We have to get to the point to where we take these things, take these stories, of the Bible, and then turn them around so that they actually benefit us. Don't just look at it as a good story. Look at it as a way for us to take the lessons learned from the story and apply them to your life in real time. Okay, I think we got time for one more. Let's jump down to the practical application piece. Um, let's see. Can we do the how can the principles? Yeah, let's do that one. Okay. Last question for today, and I appreciate you guys. You guys have been awesome, and I appreciate you guys in the chats as well. I want to make sure that we're addressing that. How can the principles of love, as viewed through a biblical lens, inform our approach to addressing contemporary societal challenges such as social justice, diversity, and inclusion? And can you provide examples of individuals or communities that have successfully implemented principles that achieve positive outcomes?
I'm gonna say, um, if we had a correct foundation of what love truly means, what it is, then we can build from there. And when I say that daily bread was all in this conversation before we got to it, I'm gonna read this. This is when we can overcome our differences, we can cross lines of denomination, race, and culture and truly love one another. The world is drawn to Christ and it pays attention to what we see. And they based it out of John 13:35. I was just like, if we truly knew what love was, it's a sounding board, right? Or it's a sounding board, it's a building block, it's a true foundation. Um, as far as examples that I would like to use, something as simple as when we have the runs for equality, or I don't want to say, I'm not going to use that one. Anyways, when we could get together, come to the table and say, you know what, we want to do this. Whether it's, we have October is domestic violence month, right? So that is something that people have come together for one cause to say, you know what, this is what we need to do. We come to the table, we've decided. That's one example I'd like to use to achieve a positive outcome, so that way we can love more, and we've actually come to the table to show we can both get in alignment with the same idea. But as far as any other ones, I don't know any big ones lately in my community that I could, pull from. But I would say, if we had a strong foundation based on God's love, we truly know what love is, not a perception of it, then we could actually do more as a community and move forward in the kingdom.
And I'm going to go directly from my notes and talk about what we are, a community. You know, um, love is a guiding principle, and it encourages us to build in communities that foster connection when we connected with each other, support, and mutual care. It involves breaking down some barriers and promoting dialogue and creating spaces where individuals can come together, learn from each other, and collaborate for the better of the community. So I think that to me is encompassing love, because we're going to encounter, as we've been talking about on this show today, we're going to encounter some differences, uh, and as long as we are of the same mind, we can come together, collaborate, have discussions, and then we can come on one accord. And then even if we can't, that's going to be okay. Just identifying that we may not be able to come together and walk together, that's okay as well.
What differences did we encounter? I don't recall any differences. Um, oh
Love language.
my God. Um, it's not a difference. It's just a difference of opinion. That's all it is. Um, I think for me, I think I like to kind of look at it as simple. I think it's simple. I think principles being the law. Again, principles being the law. And so, ideally, understanding the principles of the law, then that kind of helps us to understand how to, you know, my boundaries, my yard, my work, right? So that would be the principles that I talk about. But one single word encompasses the law, and that's love. So when we understand that, it's it validates who Christ, Jesus Christ, the man. It validates the need for him. It validates the cross and what he did on the cross and how we benefit, even though we didn't necessarily realize that we needed him when he did what he did. So I think, all in all, it is important for us to study to understand what love is all about. And the only way that we can remotely come close to it is studying His Word. When we study His Word and open ourselves to the difference between Logos and Rhema, right? Logos being the Word itself and Rhema being the Word coming from the Spirit, then what we realize is that sure we can quote Logos, right? But we may not necessarily embody what it says. But what we need is Rhema. And Rhema is the word coming from the Spirit for me in real time. Um, and in the midst of it happening in real time for me, then it allows me to have compassion for others in the space of time because I realized that I was and still am a flawed being moving in the direction of Christ. And simply because I've been through trials and tribulations. I didn't always get it right. I've made bad decisions, not mistakes. We got to stop saying that. I've made bad decisions. I've done some things that were not honorable to my family, therefore defiling the name. You know, we've all done it. Um, so when they do it, I can exercise compassion, right? I can exercise I can be a vessel of grace. I can be that person that can actually go to them and have an honest conversation to where I embrace them instead of ostracize them. Natasha, I'm stealing your word now. Instead of ostracize them and kick them out the community because y'all got to put a scarlet letter on your forehead because you don't committed adultery. That's the wrong thing to do. We don't do stuff like that. You don't judge people to such a degree. You kick them out. Um, but you become compassionate, right? You let the word do the judging, right? Let me say it again: the word do the judging, let the word do the teaching, and so forth and so on. You just simply be a vessel through which it comes. I think a lot of times, and I kind of find myself in a number of different spaces, right? You have on one hand, there's a start, the word, get it, I understand it. We need to study it, right? On one hand, the flesh. You see what I'm saying? Well, we have to look at it from the perspective of studying the word, to know the word, to learn the word, to open ourselves up to who the Father really is, so that He can continue to pour in us. And the more that He pour in us, the more that He can actually use us for His benefit. But we do not deny the fact that we are still dealing with this earth suit. This earth suit is real. It's not something that you get to throw on the ground. So the three parts, and you Diamond Club members, you know what I'm talking about. The three parts of your being become a thing. You don't put the lowest part above above the highest part. No, the flesh has to be at the bottom. The spirit is always at the top. So if I keep things in proper order, what ends up happening is that I will never view a person based upon just simply their outward features, because those things are fleeting. No one cares about what you look like. Nobody cares, about all of those things we spend so much time working on and doing is the lowest part of our existence. We need to spend more time working on this. The more time we spend working on this, the more time we spend getting this to line up with what God placed in me. What's inside the container is more valuable than the container itself. But what we like to do is overemphasize the container, thinking that if the container looks good, then you will accept me. And if you accept me, that means you like me. That's the wrong place to be in. So that's kind of like what I want to leave off of that question. Listen, great conversations. I appreciate you guys, even though you would judge me based upon my depiction of love languages. I still love y'all anyway, though. That's all right. That being said, that takes us to our bittersweet moment um, that we're going to discuss going in. Elisa, I think I want you to go last, ma'am, since you're the guest and you was dropping them hot fire nuggets today. I want you to go last. So Miss Anita, you go first, then I go second, and Lisa Keys, you're gonna close us out. Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you all for joining us. Well, my final thoughts are, don't think that you're weak for choosing to love the way that God says. That's the true definition. And then also knowing that He is with you through the obstacles, through the trials and tribulations, through the isolation that you may go through from choosing. But also know this, in the word it says, you owe no man nothing but to love him. So you don't have to explain why you're deciding to choose God's way of loving, his principles, but also know that he validated us when we were born. So we don't need the approval of others. He's already given us his approval. And to really know God, to know him, to have a relationship with him means that you have already experienced the real definition of love.
I was a little long-winded just now, so I'm gonna keep mine short, sweet, and simple and to the point. We got to we gotta humble ourselves at all possible costs. It doesn't matter how much we know, how much we think we know, or any of those things. How long, because you know how we do. I've been in the church for 30, 40 years, or I've done this, I sat on the deacon board, or I've been a co-pastor. Like we got to humble ourselves because at the end of the day, the only and this is one of my biggest sticking points. I've learned over the years that the more I know, it only reveals to me the more I don't know. And so for me, I want to maintain a sense of humility so I can continue to learn. I think that's where we have to all be, especially when it comes down to understanding the fullness of who the Father is. You don't know everything there is to know when it comes down to the Father. So it's virtually impossible for us to express the fullness of his character. What we have to get to the point of doing is recognizing that before judging someone else on the other hand, right? Recognize that we're still learning, recognize that we're still growing in the space of love, in the space of humility, in the space of charity, in every space, in every aspect of it, especially in the space of expressing his character. And the first and highest one is love, right? Love, joy, peace, like the fruit of the spirit. One fruit, several characteristics. So in the fruit of the spirit, what we're supposed to do is humble ourselves continuously. Christ sacrificed himself on the cross. We sacrifice ourselves to the spirit. That's how it works. The more we sacrifice ourselves to the spirit, the more the spirit comes through us. So that's my last comments. Lisa Keys, ma'am, if you don't mind, would you close us out? And thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. And I am so thankful to be here on the platform today and just sharing with you guys. The first thing I think I wanted to say is something that I was thinking, and I think I may have even said it, that there is no such thing as love, because self-love, because we don't own love. We're blessed with love because of the sacrifice that Christ made for us. It's our responsibility in love to be imitators of Christ and to point each other back to the Father. If there is any error in us, because we love each other, love is not just the flowers and the roses and the kindness and the hugs and the tender words. Sometimes love is rebuke. Sometimes love is separation for a time, because it's necessary for us as we are growing, and we need our influence to come from the Holy Spirit. We need that time to hear from Him. And so, my final words I would be is that we have to understand that at all times, in every situation, that we need to filter our conversations through the Word of God. And I think I say this so often because it's something that I am practicing. And we need to point our brothers and sisters um, back to God, because that is where our help is going to come from. We have to be good at planting seeds. We have to be good at watering when it's our time to water, and we have to pray for them that God will give the increase.
Very good. Very good. Okay, listen, again, we always appreciate you guys for joining us. We're almost at the top of the hour. I do not want to miss the fact that I just, again, Thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Poor Man's Dr. Phil, Michelle Ray, Natasha Jones, Ms. Verlene McCoy, Cassandra McKenzie. I think I seen Crystal Everett earlier. Listen, thank you to everybody. We appreciate you guys. We value you guys. Again, we know that you could have been any place else, but you are here with us and we don't take it lightly. So on behalf of, the ladies, on behalf of everybody in the community, we want to thank you. Don't forget to join the community. Go to www.totalmindsetshift.com, because I promise you I'm going to start dropping some questions in there this week about this conversation today. Listen, have a great rest of your day. Have a fantastic weekend. And look, not only be blessed, but be a blessing to someone else. You guys have a great week. We love you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Too many things going on, I can't keep track of them all. From people dropping a bomb to people putting up walls. I feel like life is on hold, perception stuck in a vault. I know that time can heal all, but how much time till we fall? It's awfully chilly outside when there's no shelter to hide. When everything is a lie, you'll find that out in some time. But when the things on your mind are all considered a crime, communication aside, we'll all just fight till we die. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't